What's going on, mobile gamers? Tonight we're going to be modifying the Game Boy Pocket with a new shell and the upgraded screen. Hey, I can see the back of it. Look, can you see yourself? So let's jump in and learn how to mod this. In the land of modding, you've come across an old console like this and you wanted to mod it, and maybe you're new at modding, maybe you've never modded anything before, and this is probably the easiest mod that I have come across, and I'm going to show you how to do it today. So let's jump right on in and learn how to do it, because the Game Boy Pocket looks really nice when you actually give it a new screen like you see here. This screen is the Retro Pixel variant. It does have the ribbon cable just like the Retro Pixel. It's a little bit different than the actual Retro Pixel brand. I keep saying Retro Pixel, but it's the same style. It might be a little bit different in the sense that it might say Retro Pixel on the back of it. I think that's just honestly a name that they gave it for the company that they're selling it for. There's Funny Plane. I got this one at AliExpress, and it was just a no-name generic screen. Like I said, I'm going to put the link in the description for you guys to actually check it out if you want to buy one. I really like it. It's worked pretty well on my other Game Boy Pocket that I ended up doing. So let's get into actually modding this thing, because it's not too hard, honestly. You do need a soldering iron for sure. That is one major thing. You don't have to buy anything crazy. Minor soldering skills required for this. One major tip for when we're doing this is to get yourself some soldering flux. Flux paste is what it's called, which is right here. And like I said, this is called just the 4GB IPS screen, high brightness IPS backlit kit LCD screen with shell. And that's the cool thing, is it has the shell, but the flux is really highly recommended for a lot of soldering if you've never soldered before. And I have just this generic soldering kit here. I'll put a link in the description below for that on Amazon. It is going to be an affiliate link as well. Probably all this stuff is going to be an affiliate link other than the AliExpress. So I do have an affiliate with Amazon, and if you want to support the channel a little bit and buy this stuff for your modding, including this is actually an awesome kit that I bought. It has a lot of different bits that you'll ever need. My screwdrivers and stuff don't really stay in here anymore. They kind of just sit in my box over here. And all you need for this is a tri-wing bit and a Phillips screwdriver. And I have the Phillips 0, which is going to be for the inside. And Y 3.0 is, I think, what I used for this the last time. Yes. So the Y 3.0. Now I'm going to get rid of this kit because I don't really need it sitting there. And every time I do any modifications, I always like to just pop the batteries in just to give myself some kind of less anxiety, to make sure that, hey, this thing does still work before I actually do this. As you can see, it does work. So we can turn this off, take the game out. Yes, Pokemon Blue is sitting in there, and that's where it's going to go after. It's going to go right back in there. Let's get right into this. Now, put the batteries off to the side. Put a couple other things off to the side. Be very careful with your screen. That screen is very fragile, and you do not want to have to break it. So, we got our bits. We got everything else here. And our rubber mat. Another thing that is really nice to have is a rubber mat like this when you're doing any modifications. I haven't done any modifications in a while, so it's been a few weeks, or actually a couple months. I don't know when the last time I did this. So we're going to take out the 4 screwdrivers at the back here. There's 4 at the top. There's 2 at the bottom inside. And again, this was your tri-bit or tri-wing, whatever your Y bit for the back screws. So it's a 3.0. Hopefully you can see that on the camera there. And now all we have to do is just lift off the back. Now the inside of this is going to be pretty clean, because I did a video about refurbishing. And yeah, this is looking really nice in there still. It's nice and clean still. I'm going to set that off to the side. Now there's going to be 3 screws in the back here. There's 1, 2, and 3 right there. Those are going to be your Phillips. And I use a Phillips 0 for that. Now, if your kit came with... Actually, I'm using a Phillips 1 for this one. If your kit came with a screwdriver set, that's awesome. But I'm using a Phillips 1. Sorry about that. I thought it was a 0. And yes, the 1 works the best. Keep your screws kind of organized and remember where you put them. There's like a little tray right here that I can kind of remember, hey, these 3 screws go in that kind of order. And then we're going to pop out that ribbon cable at the top. That's going to be pretty simple, but you want to be careful with that because the ribbon cable, if you want to keep the screen for any reason, then you can reuse that. Now, if you have tweezers with the kit, which you do, then you can use tweezers. Otherwise, you can use this plastic spudger, and we can just take the tabs one side at a time. And as you can see, it just pops right off. So now we're going to take out these buttons because we're going to be using these as well. This kit doesn't come with extra power buttons or anything, unfortunately, so we're going to have to reuse all that. And then we can just lift this board up ever so nicely. And while you're doing all this, like I said, this is all nice and clean inside. Same with this board. I've already cleaned it up. But if you want to clean this up with some isopropyl alcohol, give the tabs and any of the contacts a nice rub with a Q-tip or whatever, then go ahead and do so. Clean everything out, whatever you want to do with that. Just keep it aside for now because the next part is going to be the fun part. So let's take out all these rubbers and membranes. Take out all the buttons. And then we can set this aside. The screen, like I said, is the original screen, and we don't need anything other than the board and the buttons. So we can put that wherever you want to put that. I just put it right off to the side here. Now, the next thing we're going to have to do, we need to solder this little wire, which is a really tiny wire that they gave you because it's not going to be anything really heavily fed anywhere throughout this. There's going to be a solder point on the back here on your power switch, and I will show you that up close. So right here, hopefully you can see on the camera very, very good. Right on this point right here, very, very good. That didn't make any sense. You're going to solder that ribbon or that wire right there. And then the other side of that wire is going to go to this power, PWR, on the back of this ribbon cable right here. So this a ribbon cable, eventually we're going to be sliding it back in here. All right, so installing your screen is going to be a little bit finicky at first if you've never done anything like this before. So I've only done one other Game Boy Pocket, and the way that we're going to do this, there is some adhesive tape on the back. So you're going to fold over this tab right here, which is the connector piece right here, and you're going to pop it right on to this section right here of the board. And don't force it. If you don't feel like it's going on, you're going to try to feel it with your finger so that you can actually get that on there. And I'm trying to keep this on camera so you guys can see this part. And there we go. Now you can feel a little click. You'll be able to feel it line up too. If you feel that little click when it pops in there, that means that you've successfully attached it to the back. Now, I'm going to peel off this tape right here. You're going to be very careful with this because you don't want to break the screen or anything. This is just the adhesive that's holding down the screen protector. And we're just going to peel it off the other way because we're going to be taking this off anyways. So it doesn't matter which way we take it off. I know that's got a little void warranty, but that's okay. There we go. Make sure you don't get any fingerprints on that. If you do, you can just clean it off. And then we're going to take off this sticky tape right here. We're going to fold this back, stick it right onto the board, just like so. Now, again, we're going to be putting this in like this, not the other way like I said at the beginning there. You're going to be going upwards. And that little ribbon cable, or the little wire, is going to be going from this point right here, the furthest point over here on the power switch, to the power spot right on the actual ribbon cable itself. And we're going to do that right now. So what I like to do first, we'll get this wire out of here. We'll pull this out for a moment. We'll grab some flux. Make sure you don't get it on those other prongs. We're going to grab some flux for here as well. Okay. And then we're going to grab our soldering iron and make sure it is hot. Now I've got this little cleaning brass. By all means, I am no professional at soldering, and again, like I said, this is kind of a beginner thing. I know what I'm doing, so just get that flux, the touch with the soldering, and you got yourself a little ball right there. I will try to zoom in on that. And then we're going to add a little bit more right here, even though there is already some wick, so that we have something to actually attach that to. So I'm just going to put my soldering iron off to the side for a moment. And we're going to pop this right in here because I want to test this before I actually put everything all together. Now, make sure that ribbon cable is right in there nicely. Make sure you don't see any of the tabs or any of the connections. And when you feel like that's perfect, which I feel like that's good enough, push those tabs down. And again, as you see, it's starting to slide out. You can use your fingers, honestly. There we go. And then you're going to grab that wire with some tweezers if you want to. And my soldering gun is melting my plastic on my soldering wick. Oops. Now that we have that wire, we're going to attach one end to the power. When you feel like it's in there, you can do a little pull test. And then, if you don't want to touch the wire anymore, grab your tweezers. You can also try to like bend this a certain way so that it'll sit on that spot before you actually have to solder it. And again, not a professional at soldering. I know what I'm doing. But sometimes you just have to be patient with it until you actually get it on there. And there we go. So that's on there. That's not going anywhere. That's pretty tight. And we shouldn't need the soldering anymore. Now, what you could do with this is grab some of this heat tape. I'm going to put the link in the description for that as well. Just peel it back. Grab your little cutters that are inside that kit. And just tape that down so it doesn't go anywhere. It's not going to affect anything. And now we're ready to actually put everything else together. So we got our screws, we got our back plate, and the back part of our actual console. So we're going to set this part off to the side. We're going to take this screen and just try not to touch it. Again, like I said, too much. Now, this adhesive is very annoying, honestly. I like to cut it before I actually put it in here because it only goes a certain way, and you'll see that it has the round tabs on this side for it to go down into here. Now, this is all up to your preference how you do this. I'm going to try to peel this all off. Keep the square on the center of it. And the square kind of helps with where to place this. Or sorry, this goes... yeah, this goes the other way because it's got to go up against this right here. So it's got to go that way, and then that's the big problem, is why they did that the opposite way. They should have did it the other way, in my opinion. So we're gonna peel this back. So cool tip is just to kind of not get it stuck to your fingers like I have right now. Because when you start stretching that, it's going to cause issues when you try to lay it down inside there. So, there we go. Just be gentle with it. Now we can actually seat this using that square and try to line it up. You could use the other side, actually. Line it up against those outside tabs. Then just drop it down into place. Now, that tape won't even be seen when we use the actual cover, so that's good. Now, the next thing we're going to do is drop in our buttons. And if you've bought different buttons for this, then you can just use whatever buttons you have. Otherwise, use the default buttons, make sure they're clean. And then make sure you put your power switch back in there. Put your rubber membranes all back in there as well. And then we're going to be ready to drop that screen into place. So grab your screen and your board all at once. Now you can make sure you can look at your screen. Do not, if you see any dust or anything like that, don't rub it too much. Grab a window cloth if you have one. Give it a little bit of dust, a little wipe. Don't put a lot of pressure on this. Really annoying when you put it all together and you accidentally put a fingerprint on it, because then you have to take it all apart and try to clean it somehow. And that looks pretty good. No dust. Maybe not have a fan running in the background. And then we're going to drop this in there. Now you can get rid of that power switch for a moment if you need to. But we should be able to just drop this right in. Move that rubber membrane at the back there. And ever so nicely, get it right in there. Without putting too much pressure, so that it's actually stuck onto that adhesive tape on the other side. Okay, now lining up the speaker. You're going to want to try to line that up so it doesn't feel like it's being intruded on. Now there are different tabs on the speaker. It's kind of hard to see that. Okay. Now, this little piece right here, that's for changing the actual color and stuff. So we're going to peel off this adhesive tape right here. That's what this is. My tweezers have hit the fan. These are old tweezers. They didn't come with this kit. And you can take this and stick it right up in here. And then if you want to grab your plastic spudger, you can just try to make it stick to the top wall of the plastic there. Just like so. Now, if you feel like you're forcing anything, make sure you're not forcing anything. Like right now, I'm trying to line up this power switch, and everything else lines up nicely. And there we go. So I still have that little square in there, and there's a reason for that, and I will pop that out in a moment. Now you can pop this out with the spudger if you want to. If you don't feel safe about popping this out with the spudger, you can take it out prior to installing the screen. That's all up to you. And if you see any plastics or any of that adhesive protruding, you won't need to worry about it once you get that cover on there anyways, but you don't want to have too much of that intruding, as all of my buttons just popped out there. Let's go back in there for a second, put that button back in. And let's get these screws back in. That'll help with keeping that board down. Now again, I got lots of fingerprints on this, so I'm going to clean that off. Alright, so the next thing, we're going to add the glass screen that it came with, which is very simple. Probably the simplest part of the whole thing. You can keep that front protector on there for now as well. Now, take off all of this adhesive, everything, even this centerpiece, because that you can't take that off after you put it on, right? So you're going to take out that centerpiece first. Again, make sure there's no fingerprints on it. Maybe just give it a quick wipe. And then we're going to peel off that other 3M tape. Just like so. And then you're going to drop that right in there. Ever so nicely. I like to keep that on for a minute while I put the back on. Which is the moment of truth. Where we test if we put the power button in the right spot. This is where I just get excited because I just want to see what it looks like when I turn it on. There we go. So let's pop the batteries in before we put any screws in. That's okay. If you have a battery terminal tester, then by all means, go and test it out. But that looks good. Again, like I said, this just changes the color. Now we can put on the back sticker. And that's all up to your preference. I'm going to put it on there. Almost perfect. Perfect enough. It actually is pretty nice lined up. Put the batteries in. Grab some Pokemon Blue. Put on the back door. Flip it around. Peel off the front. Turn it on. And enjoy your newly modified Game Boy Pocket in 2023. Oh, also the side dims and brightens. And look at like, oh, that's so nice. Forgot about that part. This looks good. I love it. This is beautiful. Nothing is as nice as a backlit screen on an original Game Boy Pocket in 2023.